following is an ESG 360 video.
Well, it's the holiday season, and that means it's that time of year again to start talking about some predictions when it comes to cybersecurity. And John, I have to be honest, after this political season, I'm a little apprehensive to make predictions, so maybe we can call these things that are on our radar screen for 2017.
Good idea.
Let's start by taking a look back. You know how much I hate to admit that you're right, but boy, when you predicted ransomware was going to be a big issue in 2016, you were spot on.
Unfortunately, that's true. Ransomware grew around 300% this year. It's $1 billion business. It's also the most profitable form of malicious attack ever. And I just don't see a let up in 2017. So we're just predicting a continuation of a trend, but there'll be more ransomware attacks. There'll be more automated ransomware attacks, ransomware as a service, using automated tools to get ransomware into a bigger pool of people, and maybe the ransom will go down, but it'll be a bigger market to service.
Could be highly transactional.
It'll be highly transactional, and it could also be more targeted at different industries. We saw healthcare this year. It could be financial services in 2017.
Yeah, and we could see different types of ransomware as well. You know, as the controls evolve and be able to detect things like the rapid encryption of files, crypto may not be the means of choice by the bad actors. I wonder about applications, frankly, like Tinder. You know, if we sort of connect the dots between the Ashley Madison hack last year and ransomware, boy, there could be some blackmail and extortion that could be had if Tinder ever got hacked.
Yeah, and I think we'll also see very visible, famous personalities being attacked. They have the money, they have more at stake personally because of their reputations, and we saw the success of the attacks on the DNC, the attacks on John Podesta. So those types of targeted attacks for money, I think that's a growth industry.
Absolutely. And then we had sort of the return, you might say, of DDoS attacks with the Mariah attack emanating from IoT. What do you see happening in that area in 2017?
It appears to me that was a proof of concept type of attack, and it was successful. There's the concept of shadow nets now, where there are these botnets of IoT devices, and we don't know how big they are, and we do know they can generate terabits per second of traffic, and there aren't many back-end services that can withstand that type of attack. So that's very scary. And I think that combined with hacktivism or even nation-state activity is going to mean some major attacks this year.
It's keeping the IoT devices themselves secure as more connected devices come online, but then those devices being hijacked to participate in botnets. It's really two dimensions worth talking about here.
Yeah, and IoT is something that we'll keep our eye on because there's a lot of very insecure devices out there with just default passwords enabled. And the question is, will the market accept that, or will governments step on that with regulations? And actually, speaking of governments, we do have a new administration coming in the United States. We've seen some activity in Europe. What are you looking at for government activity next year?
Yeah, well, starting with Europe, GDPR was ratified this past spring. It goes into effect a year from the spring. So organizations and vendors alike have a year to get ready before what are some pretty appreciable fines start to take effect. You know, talk about carrot and stick. These are pretty big sticks. The fines are anywhere from 2% of turnover to 4% of turnover, capped somewhere between, I think, 10 to 20 million euros.
Yeah.
So these are non-trivial fines. This is a regulation with some real teeth in it. And it affects, of course, not only just European organizations, but U.S. organizations, not to be ethnocentric, but U.S. organizations that are doing business overseas, and obviously cloud service providers. So fortunately, there's a two-year runway, and I think everybody's going to need every day of that to get ready for GDPR when it is effective in the spring of 2018.
Yeah, the lawyers will be busy.
Lawyers will be busy as always.
Absolutely.
So how about here in the States? As you mentioned, we have a new administration. I think
we do.
We've both been disappointed at sort of the lack of taking cybersecurity seriously at the federal level. And I know you've been talking and writing about your suggestions on what a Trump administration ought to do in terms of attacking cybersecurity. What are some of your summary thoughts? Well,
the Trump administration will have support in Congress. And typically a Republican agenda is to push voluntary measures. So What I'd like to see, or what I think should be done, is just a continuation of the NIST cybersecurity framework. It's had some success. We need to push for more success. We need success metrics. We need to push that into smaller organizations. And I'd like to see the government work with insurance companies to just make that a standard way that they measure risk. And that would empower the insurance companies to have some actuarial data that they could now fine-tune policies, they could help reduce risk with their customers. So there are things we can do. I also wouldn't rule out regulations, because if we have a major attack on critical infrastructure, or if we continue to see these really insecure IoT devices being produced, someone's got to step in, and it could be a Republican administration if things get pretty hairy.
Sure. Should fines be part of that? Should organizations be more responsible with respect to financial penalties if they're not adhering to things like the NIST framework and following best practices?
Well, yes, but I don't see that in this administration. I think that, again, they want voluntary measures. They're very, very sensitive to any kind of regulations. They want to cut regulations, so I don't see that.
Well, great. Well, we have a lot more to talk about, so stay tuned
Sure
for
do.
the next edition in our series.
Yeah, and happy holidays.
Happy
Happy holidays, Doug.
Happy holidays, John.
Oh, thank you.